There was a whistleblower journalist 2 years before he said that Bhopal is sitting on a volcano. And what he predicted was, or what he predicted actually took place, and it was worse than what he had predicted. And we now realize that had vigilance or that alertness that was need of the hour, and it did not take place. Neither the administration nor the police nor the company took note of what was happening because of few minor incidents had happened. Yet the worst disaster took place, but then we became aware. So, this awareness, this vigilance is needed, and that is the reason why we celebrate this week. But we do not have to be vigilant just for a week, but round the year, 365 days are needed. And so we have to be a little more careful, and a little more care is needed, that what is it that will make Bharat a Samrad Bharat, provided that we are Satark citizens of India. Government cannot reach everywhere, but you and I can be present in most of our days. We can be careful of what is going on around us. We can be vigilant that what can be done if we find any wrongdoing. Even in our neighborhood, if we find somebody's plucking flowers from another's garden, we'll just shoo them away. Why? Because we are vigilant that, okay, what he's doing is not right. Similarly, if we talk about corruption, or if we find things like cybercrime, uh, we are in these pandemic times and most of the things are getting done from home. And that's the time we're using our credit cards or debit cards for buying most of the things, or we are using our cell phones for various activities, and we find a lot of phishing taking place, hacking taking place, and a lot of cyber crime is reported during these pandemic times. So we need to be a little more aware, a little more careful of what kind of information we are sharing, or what kind of information that people are trying to fish out from us, or just to be aware that if something, the lure of something free is being given out to us, even if it's very innocuous. A friend has sent us a link and it says that you just click on this and something will be delivered for free. Just be aware, nothing comes for free. There has to be something at the back of it, that somebody has some malintention. So we need to be very, very careful about what is going on around us, and what can we do, what I can do as a conscious citizen of India. Take care and be vigilant. So I would now like Avni to take over and continue with our presentation.
Ma'am, I would like to say something.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so as we know, the Central Vigilance Commission observes the Vigilance Awareness Week from 27th October to 2nd November. This is observed every year during the week in which the birthday of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel falls. So now, before we have Ma'am Avni speaking, I would like to mention Avni Mishra holds the rare distinction of high academic excellence across several disciplines. A President's Gold Medal awardee, she secured an All India Rank 1 in the company secretary exam and became the youngest person to do so in India at the age of 19. Her academic achievements also include the ICSI Merit Scholarship for All India Rank 13 in the CS executive level exam. Avni graduated in law from the National Law University, Bhopal, as a top scorer last year, where she also held the coveted position of the editor-in-chief of the NLIU Law Review. She also holds an MCOM degree with specialization in corporate governance. She writes for several law firms and is a keen pursuant of corporate and environmental laws. Over to you, ma'am.
Hi, thank you so much. At the onset, I would really like to thank Miranda House and all of you for inviting us. It is special to both of us as well to be able to sort of interact with all of you as a duo. So I, in the next 15-20 minutes, would like to give you a brief overview of not just the legal and the financial perspectives of it, but we would also talk about the sociological and the economic aspects of vigilance and what these gamut of financial frauds can do to not just the economic fabric of the country, but also how these affect us as individuals, how it affects us as citizens. And the last part of my talk would be about how we deal with ethical concerns and ethical dilemma. So we talk about the first part of it, why we need to talk about vigilance, right? So financial frauds have just become so they've just grown in their magnitude so much that every 5 seconds, you'd be really surprised to know this statistic, that every 5 seconds, India loses about 86,000 rupees, right? So
I think there is some network issue. It's okay, we can wait for a minute. कुछ नेटवर्क इशू हुआ है?
Can you all hear us?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, sorry about that. These things always keep happening when
It's
there's
okay.
technology involved. Yeah, so what I really was talking about is that we're losing so much money as a country and as a developing country to not just financial frauds of a large magnitude, but also tax frauds and illegal appropriation of money out of the country. Right? So it becomes very important to have this discussion on what economic vigilance can do, or what the potential of damage it can have on our society and on the economy of the country. Now, I feel it's very important to also discuss this with young college students. A lot of you would go on and start your own businesses, or maybe join the administrative services. Those of you doing a degree in economics might want to join the Indian Economic Services. Some of you might start your own NGOs, and there would be foreign funding involved. So there would be a gamut of laws that would apply to you. So I think regardless of the career that all of you young girls would choose after you leave college, it is very important to know what are the financial repercussions of a lot of daily decisions you would take, or the organizations you would be involved in. Now, we can talk about a lot of financial frauds, but we will not get into the details of how those happen. We know about frauds done by individuals, for example, the Vijay Mallya fraud, or the very recent Nirav Modi fraud. But it's not just individuals, but also governments and people and ministers and a lot of influential people who would be involved in financial frauds as well. So we've seen the Fodder scam, we've seen the 2G scam, we've seen the Commonwealth Games scam. And these were large scams which sort of tainted India's image on a global scale as well. There's also the Colgate scam. Well, Colgate is not related to the toothpaste Colgate, but it's the coal allocation scam that happened, a few years ago. So it is very important for us to understand how some of these frauds would happen. So as a lawyer, I can speak about some of these legal issues that surround financial frauds. So the first thing I would talk about is an act that I practiced as an individual because I'm a company secretary. So it's the Companies Act. So it punishes auditors by way of the 2013 amendment, and it says that even people who are involved in monitoring that the fraud does not happen, for example, an auditor, if there is professional misconduct on their part, how they would be held responsible, right? Then came the Prevention of Corruption Act, the Central Vigilance Commissioners who are appointed for people who are in the services. So how are you responsible for conducting the affairs of your own organization? And if there's a fraud that happens because of you as a government officer, what is the route of legal punishment that would be taken? Now, very natural question to some of you would be that, why don't we bring Vijay Mallya back and we punish him? Or why don't we bring a Nirav Modi back and just prosecute him? We have all the evidence against them. So the practical reality of it is that there is something called extradition involved, right? So when someone commits a fraud within India, they are able to escape to other countries because of several loopholes in our aviation system, in our monitoring system. So they are able to go to these countries which do not, which sort of offer them some level of protection. So there's something called an extradition involved to bring them back to India. And there is no global agency that you can just apply to and they would be sent on the next flight to India, right? So there would be a host of legal procedures, and Vijay Mallya, by virtue of his stature, would be able to afford the best lawyers. So some of the pleas that his lawyers put up in the UK courts are that Indian jails are full of rodents and pests, and they are dirty and unhygienic, and my client is not very healthy, so he would be exposed to a host of different risks when he goes there. Now, to us as Indians, it sounds extremely foolish. You've committed a fraud, you deserve to be in that jail, whatever the condition of that jail might be. But to the UK courts or to courts in other countries, there, if this person comes to India, he would not be given a fair trial, right? So every person deserves a fair trial, and because of the media and all the coverage against them, they would not be afforded a fair trial. The court might just be biased, the judges may be biased. So there are these legal loopholes as to why we can't bring this person back into our own country. And there's the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act, which was passed about 2 years ago, right? So there are these different issues that we have to grapple with, which brings us back to a central point, that we need to identify frauds at the very stage that they're happening, so that they don't snowball into this whole larger problem of finding the right individual and then punishing them and bringing them back into the country. So the other acts, some of these are, the Competition Act, so to say. So it talks about antitrust policies. I don't know if some of you know about, the antitrust cases against Apple and Google. These are the largest companies, and Google has become the best search engine, right? So you go on and you just say, what is the weather in my city right now? And it will give you an ad, and it will also give you some very specific search results. So Google has this ability to modify its results to show you results of a company that's paying it more. So it is, to us, it is good because we feel that it's showing us the best results or the most appropriate information out there. But on the back end, Google might just be taking money from some of these companies and giving the prominent search position to the company that's paying it the most. Now, it doesn't affect India as a country, so this is not really economic vigilance. But my point here is that there are so many companies, for example, cement companies in India or Apple operating in India, that by virtue of its large resources and by virtue of how large that company has become, it would be able to stop all competition. It would be able to charge you prices that might be unfair. So Apple iPhones would be really expensive, but what alternative do you even have if you are addicted to the Apple ecosystem, right? And they would keep charging extra prices for every subsequent phone. They might slow down your previous phone, so you would be compelled to pay more. So who is the person who's really deciding this? The courts. But for that case to come to the courts, there are, again, several legal issues. I mean, drawing the line between what is fair for a seller to charge, and when do they cross that line of being unfair to the customers? That's really a question that courts determine, right? A lot of our work as lawyers is centered around protecting clients. I mean, as much as we can talk about advocacy and how lawyers should be involved with social work, the profession at some stage really goes back to protecting business clientele and these large companies. And intelligent lawyers would be able to not just fudge economic accounts or help businessmen escape a lot of tax queries and tax evasion, but also help them close guard and safeguard their assets. So, for example, when Nirav Modi or any other such person comes under tax scrutiny or the scrutiny of any specific department, the first advice that lawyers give is transfer all your assets. So even if the court were to attach your property, which means taking your property and then it becomes a part of the court so that it can be used to satisfy whatever is the debt or the penalty against you. So a lot of these people would then transfer their property or their assets in the names of their children, their wives, third parties, and the court would actually never even come to know the trail because it would cross so many different layers, right? So again, we come back to the central question of making sure that such financial frauds don't take place in the first place. So my last part of this before we sort of take on questions is how does it affect us as individuals, right? As someone who's working in a company, for example, some of you would join as managers, and wherever you would go, whatever position you're in, what should you do when you come to know that there's a financial misappropriation happening? And it's something very common, right? As children who are growing up, we take money from our parents, and we sort of say that we need it for books, but we might just go and spend it on something that we've been eyeing on for really long, and our parents might not want us to buy that. So those are the casual, the harmless kind. But when you come to know that an employee or a co-worker or a boss is indulging into some kind of financial inadequacies, or there's something in terms of the economic ethics going wrong in your company, how do you really take it forward? And I'm going to ask you an ethical question, which you don't need to answer to me, but it's just something that would depend on facts and circumstances. That if someone is really good with their work, they're the best employee, but they're dishonest, what do you do with them? Do you remove them? Do you find someone with another skill set who'd just be as efficient, but you would waste resources finding that person? Do you correct that person? So those are, that's one of the classic ethical dilemmas that most managers would face at their workplaces. So if you're the person, you come to know that there's something happening in your organization, whether you're in the government, whether you're in a non-profit organization. When you come to know that there's an inadequacy, the real question, the difficult question to ask to yourself is, as self-serving individuals, as sociology students would know, is we're always acting in our own self-interest as a society, as individuals. So we would think about what impact would it have on our employment, our image in front of the people that we serve, the people we are subservient to, our bosses. And then, we need to ask deeper questions to ourselves and about what is the impact, why is someone taking a decision that they are? And goals are often conflicting in the sense that, sales might want to show more sales, but the production unit might want to use some of those funds and expand their production, or the advertising part of the company might want more funds for itself. So even within an organization that is trying to serve the same purpose, there would be these different limbs that would be often conflicting with each other, right? So if you're in the sales and you see that a production person is using more money for their own expansion, it would be a good idea to try and understand, why is that person doing that, and how is it affecting the entity as a whole, and then sort of taking it forward step by step. If most organizations now have a vigilance department or an employee grievance department, people have also started to appoint ethical officers. So taking it through that route or something like that would just be the best way forward. And I think as individuals who could be taking decisions for the country, it's really a balance between our inner consciousness and an external vigilance. The government creating an ecosystem where people feel comfortable coming out and being assured of the protection that any person who's disclosing a kind of fraud would be entitled to. And we, of course, have a lot of Netflix documentaries. And I was just yesterday watching this, the Harshad Mehta scam story. So I think there is a lot of momentum building up about the financial frauds that have affected us. And there's a lot of technology that's now coming in. So I think the future does look very optimistic. And yeah, I would just probably, if there are questions, we would love to answer them together. And yeah, that's really our message for the broad overview. If there's something else I can talk about, something in depth that as students you would want to know from me, something about legal policy making, something about the economics, then I would be happy to answer those. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. We have the first question from Badal.
Sure.
She's asking, there's a lot of data bulking by social media sites and others where they collect data without our consent a lot of times. How do we protect ourselves from it?
Sure. Right. So absolutely, we go on and log into so many websites that say, I agree. And there's this host of terms and conditions which we do not even read, but we click I agree without having read through it. So that's definitely a challenge. And as consumers, we are definitely the weaker party in this case. You can't go to a social media firm and say, I will disclose my data, but based on X, Y, Z conditions, how it would work in a normal contract. So it's not a normal contract. It's a standard form of contract where consumers would have very limited rights. So as someone, I should say this, that I'm very limited on my Instagram usage. I don't have a WhatsApp account. I'm not on Facebook now because I had just been reading so much more about how, data analytics and face recognition and privacy issues work in the social scene. So I would not share everything every day about my life. I would hardly post anything, and that's just a person that I have become now. My mom really likes that, but I think it's a personal choice at the end of the day. Maybe a few years from now, we would have some very strict safeguards. We would have coordinating very closely. I think right now our government and our courts are also very. I mean, imagine this: a judge sitting in the High Court who's deciding, bail proceedings and criminal conduct, and you go to them with a case about how from some website your data was stolen, how the encryption thing works on these websites. I don't think the generation of judges right now would be equipped, and that's not to generalize it, so equipped right now to deal with challenges of this kind. So maybe a few years from now, as our society develops and has more congruence with how the technology is evolving, our legal system and our rights would also grow accordingly. And yeah, that's really my answer to it. But right now, I think what you can do is really take
Safeguard
it,
your own interest and protect yourself from as much as you can.
Yeah,
in saving the data being stolen.
Yeah. I also feel, Avni, that you are right, that it's not probably, we are not that much equipped right now, because even we
Yes.
keep getting these kind of messages every day from the bank, this bank or that bank. Today itself, I got a
Sure.
message in the morning that 79,000 have been, given to you. Kindly confirm your details. I mean, why
Right.
79,000 from where? And if you have already confirmed, why you're wanting the confirmation from me? I mean, these are all very
Right.
fishy things.
Absolutely.
One should not click on any kind of thing.
Yeah.
One should not think कि शायद मेरी कोई lottery लग गई है. ऐसा नहीं है.
Exactly.
कई बार जो
Yeah.
बच्चे होते हैं, there are some people who just get into the flow and then they just click it on it. And these are all the tricks
Yes.
for again stealing your data from your mobiles,
Yes.
maybe your credit cards and all.
And as a
if I-
country, just to add to that, not just children,
Yeah.
but we have this mass of people who are now becoming social media friendly, right? People
Yeah.
like drivers and cleaners and people from rural areas. So we have this new generation of people that's now coming onto social media. So they are really not
That is
aware.
true.
When someone sends them an email that I'm from
Mhm.
Addis Ababa and I'm dying and I want to transfer all my money to you, they might actually
Yeah.
take it seriously, because they probably some of these people don't understand the risks of it. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's a very
It is not
relevant
just with these people,
issue.
Avni. It just happened maybe a few months back with us, that somebody
Yeah.
hacked our principal's account, and it was
Mhm.
like with her name. We got the emails that okay,
Yeah.
I'm very busy in these meetings, and I was supposed to send a few vouchers to these people as a honorarium or something. So kindly
Yes.
please Rekha, you buy this vouchers, है ना? Amazon का voucher
Right.
खरीद लीजिए, and or you
Amazon.
just send it
Yes.
to me and all this thing.
Yes.
And I was like, and I was a little bit curious कि ma'am, I don't even use any online transactions. I'm so
Sure.
sorry. And initially I didn't think, but then the second thought came कि why would she ask me? And secondly,
Right.
then I called her. I immediately called her. I immediately WhatsApp her, asking her, and she said, "Ki Rekha, please see carefully. It's not my email ID. Somebody is using my
Right.
name. They have hacked it, but it's not my email ID. So one has to be really careful." So even people like
Yes.
us, we are so much educated in everything,
Right.
but still sometimes that spur of a moment
Yeah,
we
the
don't even
person
think it.
concerned is like our higher up, so we
Yeah.
sometimes may
Yeah.
not
क्योंकि
believe
प्रिंसिपल ने
that
मैडम
this
ने
is
भेजा है
like
तो बस चलो देख लो फटाफट से,
तो
तो
सही
वो एक
होगा.
चीज जो
Exactly.
हाँ है ना.
और बिल्कुल
and with
ऐसे
her
बहुत
name only
convincing
somebody
traps
has
आ रहे हैं. So one has to be
और
very
उनके नाम
careful.
से
और
कोई
किसी ने
भेजेगा
भी
तो कोई शक नहीं करेगा.
एग्जैक्टली बिल्कुल उनकी पूरी जो ईमेल हैक हो जाती है, सारे सेंडर लिस्ट है, उसके बाद कोई 2-4 भी ट्रैप में आ गए तो वो कई बार हिचक में कि हाउ डू आई अप्रोच द टॉपिक, हाउ डू आई से मोर, हाउ डू आई क्वेश्चन की आपने हेस्ट, और वो जल्दी से वो कंप्लाई भी कर देते हैं. इवन पेट्रोल पंप पर लॉटरी के नाम पर आपसे फोन नंबर ले लेते हैं. There are such convincing ways by which they make you give the data, and so it's very important that we be very, very vigilant and be very careful with what we share, and especially your
मुझे
data,
लगता है
important
हम लोगों को
documents. वहां
सबको
से
थोड़ा
आपकी
सा
जी
लालच भी कम करना चाहिए. हमें कोई लालच में नहीं आना चाहिए, है ना. सभी लोगों को आई थिंक ऑल ऑफ अस गेट वेरी हैप्पी कि भाई हाँ कोई कह रहा है मेरी लॉटरी लगने वाली है. ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता. एज यू सेड इन द बिगनिंग very rightly, and I fully agree that nothing comes free. There is a cost for everything you have to pay.
everything.
So be very
Right.
careful, beta.
Yes.
Yes.
We had a
Should
cyber
we take
crime.
on the next?
Acha, yeah.
Yes,
I mean, we have another
It's
question.
important.
So,
Yeah.
yes.
So Dakshita Rathi has asked, how does the right to information help to increase our sphere of influence for scrutinizing funds allocation? Given the power politics, right? So the right to information is something that's long been in the news, especially after the government brought in this amendment last year that sort of reduced the powers of RTI commissioners. They were earlier considered equivalent to the election commissioners, but now there have been amendments which have sort of reduced the scope, and the central government now has power over appointment of their tenure and deciding the remuneration. And there are a host of legal details to that. The RTI is challenging in the sense that you can't compel someone to give out information, right? So, for example, the PM Cares Fund, right? They only said that PM Cares Fund does not come within the purview of the RTI. Now, why does it not come under purview? They have no answers. I mean, they just gave a one-line question, but the conjectures really are that it's not regulated by a statutory act. It was just something that was set up ad hoc, and there is there's the finance minister and the home minister that's going to be deciding But those are all the arguments that also go in favor of establishing it as a public authority, and all public authorities have to come under the RTI. So it really is it's a power game, like she has rightly said, that it is a power politics, so to say. But we can use RTI in little things to sort of get information about how something was used, how a fund was utilized, and then that information becomes power to go to the court and say that it's been done. It also acts as a deterrent to the authority done this, because they would know that there can be punishments for it, right? So it plays a deterrent role, so to say. But I would say that the RTI in some ways is it's a toothless tiger. Yeah. I'll take on the next question, which is, Anshi, I'm not too sure of what your question means. What do you think actually imbibes the spirit of not being vigilant? If you could just explain your question better, I think I would try and answer that. There are situations where people are compelled to take the wrong decision in a capitalist world. How do we challenge that? Yeah, absolutely. I think from time immemorial, we've from the time of the prehistoric man, we were always killing animals for our self-interest. We were doing things for our community, our tribes, and now in the modern world, we've become even more capitalistic with all of these different gadgets and technology at our disposal. I think the answer to that really lies within ourselves, to sort of be committed to our interest in being on the right path, right? And I think it's people sometimes may call it spirituality, they may call it religion, they may call it commitment to a higher spiritual force. But I think individually, that's what we can do. And of course, the government and the policy initiatives help further it. When people are free, for example, in the US, there's a Whistleblowers Protection Act. If you know about Edward Snowden, what happened to him was really unfortunate, because he disclosed some secrets about the US intelligence agencies, and then the US government did not like that. But they do have an act that says that people would be protected. So maybe he was someone who felt that he would be protected. We don't have something like that in India as yet, but I think if there's a lot of policy momentum around securing that externally, and for us to feel internally that we need to bring about a change in our society if there's something wrong happening, then I think that's really the answer to how we stay on the right path in the capitalist world.
Do we have any more questions? Okay, ma'am, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
What do you think? Yes, ma'am. So
all
thank
right.
you so much, ma'am, for enlightening us.
So it was wonderful.
Good wishes to the
talking to
NSS team, yes, for conducting all the events. I was reading about the debate that you had in the morning. So good luck to each one of you. You all have been working really wonderfully, and good wishes to all of you.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Thank
being
you. Thank
here,
you so
and,
much, Dr. Preeti and Avni as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Both of you gave very valuable insight about these things going on in our society at present. I hope these students will take a genuine pledge not to get involved and not to get into any trap of such economic frauds. Thanks a lot. See you sometime.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. All right. Good luck to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We are really grateful for the time and effort you took out to share your knowledge. Whatever you said has had a lasting impact on all of us. Thank you so much. With this, I would like to conclude the event. Everyone can now
maybe
leave.
we have to we have to declare the results also.
Yes, ma'am.
We have to declare the results.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, we have the results. I have sent them to you. You can announce them.
Okay. Just a minute. So it is, if all the participants are here, The first, maybe I should announce the third prize first. She is Shalu
Yes.
Kumari from ARSD College. Congratulations, Shalu. Are you there?
I don't think she's here.
Okay. Then the second position goes to Abhishek Tripathi, again from ARSD. Is Abhishek here? No. Then the third prize goes to Abhiyankar Shukla from KMC. Congratulations, Abhiyankar. And congratulations to all participants, everyone whosoever participated and put forward their views on this very important topic today and joining this event. Thanks a lot and all the best to all of you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. With this, I would like to conclude the event. Everyone may now leave. Thank you so much for attending.